Hey everybody, it's Barbara Ann. Welcome back to my channel, Straight Out of Context.
On that night, what was running through your mind?
I think on that night, my whole thought process was not even focusing on what was about to happen. It was all about what kind of life would I live afterwards.
The identities would be reduced.
So would I have different kinds of animals, like a dog or a cat or a bird?
Aww, poor little Gypsy. She's never ever had any kind of pets. Well, if you follow me on TikTok, then you know that's not true because I've done over 4 different videos talking about the Blanchard pets, meaning the pets that they had from the time they moved to Missouri to the time of the crime in a 9-year period. And so a lot of people have wondered, a lot of these cats and dogs, they should have had for the whole duration of that 9 years. We see that Dee Dee Blanchard and Gypsyrose Blanchard have a large turnover of pets that should stay with you the duration of their life. Certainly for 9 years. Most cats and dogs can live over 9 years, depending on the breed. But we've seen her also do this when she got out of prison and was married to Ryan Anderson and had the dog Pixie. She very clearly was very hot to leave Pixie, which is funny. It's funny that Ken is a dog lover and has Parker, and she's accepting of Parker.
It was planning for a future that I had been so desperately craving to have that the reality of the situation was the furthest thing from my mind.
Because her medical records show that she has a very significant, very severe microdeletion, a chromosome disorder. And she was planning for her future, and she only cared about her future. Well, here, people with 1Q21.1 have a propensity towards schizophrenia, other mental health issues, microcephaly, which also can affect the way that the brain grows, and cognitive ability. People with that specific microdeletion also have a propensity to be hypersexualized.
So almost detached from that.
Very, very detached.
But not too detached because she was doing this.
Where were you and what were you doing?
So the night of the murder, I was with my mom in our Habitat for Humanity home. We did several things that night before the murder happened. We watched a movie, and then we went to sleep, and then it happened.
And then it happened. What she means to say is, yeah, then my crime happened. The one that I had been planning for years, the one that I tried twice before myself and wasn't successful in doing. Yeah, the plan that I'm the one who planned everything, did it all. I'm the one who texted Nick to come over, told him what to do, when to do, how to do it. I'm the one who handled everything and took care of everything. Yeah, her plan.
Do you remember your last words with her? Was it a very normal conversation or a night?
I did go to the kitchen, and I gave her a hug, and I told her I love you. And I remember, and I talk about this in my book, holding a pillow that she slept with like every night and crying into it and apologizing to this pillow as if it were her. And just saying, I'm so sorry and I love you, and just taking in the scent of the pillow.
Yeah, this never happened. Now, this right here tells you that she premeditated it, because if she was sitting there saying goodbye, planning this murder and saying goodbye to the pillow and smelling it and saying all of these things that she just couldn't bear to say to her mother for real in her face while she's alive, tells you that she premeditated it.
Because in a sense, it's like saying goodbye. And so those last words that were said, I don't take that back.
No Indian giving, Gypsy. No takey backies, okay? The bee is dead. That is exactly what she meant, okay? When she was like, I didn't want to take that back. The bee is dead. Yeah, because the bee really is dead. Duh.
And when she was killed, where were you?
I was in the bathroom. So I was instructed to go to the bathroom and stay in there while he committed the act, and I didn't come out.
which is exactly how she planned it to be. That's why she was in the bathroom nude, because she was going to help clean up afterwards. She thought that that would help with any kind of DNA evidence being left at the scene. And then she already planned to be very intimate with her boyfriend again. And so much so that she had already was smoking outside. So she clearly had already had cigarettes and a lighter and had been doing this for some time prior, right, to that night. So she was just in the bathroom and didn't have nothing to do with it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're guilty.
Could you hear her?
Mm-hmm. I could. And in that moment, like, I wanted to help her. Like, the thoughts in my head was, I want to help, but I was almost paralyzed in my own skin to move.
But that's also not true, because she did move. In fact, she moved very quickly and promptly, because she wanted to not only be in her birthday suit, she wanted to shave, she wanted to look aesthetically pleasing, she wanted to smell good, and she wanted it to be so romantic. And remember, this is all her plan. She's the one who carried all of this out. She is the one who planned it. She is the one who wanted it. She is the one that organized everything. She paid for it. She did all of it.
When it was over, when she was quiet, what did you feel? Do you remember?
I remember my heart racing. I remember trying to focus on my breath and trying to count how many times I was breathing, because taking the next breath was harder and harder. And so after it was over, he knocked on the bathroom door, which was a sign for me to let him inside the bathroom. And then he instructed me to be fully nude.
Exactly how she wanted it to be. And she ends up going with Nicholas to Nicholas's stepdad and mother's house, where she ends up, going at it like rabbits, and his stepdad's constantly having to tell them to be quiet. It's exactly how she wanted it. Exactly how it played out is exactly how she wanted it to play out.
And then the rest of the night was very traumatic. And then we left the home and we stayed a few nights at a hotel until we could get a bus back to Wisconsin, where he was living.
Now, see, this is where a lot of people have theories that she was trying to frame Nicholas Godejohn for having done the crime and then taking her, and that she wasn't intending on actually going back with Nicholas Godejohn. But
when you say very traumatic, you're referring to of a sexual nature.
Yes.
Yeah, Gypsy has a problem with hypersexuality. When
you're describing this, you're so calm. You're so composed. I feel like you could almost be telling me about a night, at the theater.
Because you have to be psychopathic, sociopathic, and narcissistic to offer up your 13-year-old daughter to her biological father for her 13th birthday present. Yeah, that's the type of person you're dealing with here, lady, okay?
Have you processed this, or do you feel like you've gone through it so many times?
I think that it's a little bit of both. I'm in therapy. And so in therapy, we do talk a lot about the traumatic events that have unfolded in my life.
What about the traumatic events to Stephanie Goldammer that you caused, or Nicholas Godejohn? His trial, his freedom, his life. What about your own husband, Ryan Anderson? What about the trauma you inflicted on Dan Glidewell? Or how about your own mother, whose life you took? What about the trauma you inflicted on others?
And so I am working through those things with a therapist. This is actually kind of the first time I've been honest. Besides being honest, with my attorneys. Even that, I haven't been completely honest with them.
Yeah. So. Do you feel like you have confronted, or are you still confronting the events of that night?
Some things I've confronted. There are other things that I still don't want to talk about.
Yeah, like her own reflection. We all know that she thinks she's aesthetically pleasing, and she thinks that she's some kind of God's gift to men. However, Gypsyrose Blanchard will never heal, and she will never be able to come to terms with what she actually did and who she actually is and the monster that lives inside of her until she does confront those things, like her reflection.
When you and Nick fled to Wisconsin, it was you who alerted authorities that your mother was dead.
It was. I feel like a lot of people feel like the words were very vulgar, which they were, in which I had her found, because I posted on Facebook a vulgar message.
Bullshit. Another lie. She didn't do this so her mother would be found. She did this so she can frame Nicholas Godejohn and make it look like she was kidnapped by him. Yeah.
But the point was not because that's what I felt.
You're a liar!
Consider what you know. Everyone named after a state.
No.
Everyone sharing the same birthday.
Why does she constantly look up at the ceiling? Like, the answers aren't written up there for you, Gypsy.
The point was that I used her social media to post this, and I figured if it was a really weird message that seemed strange.
A weird message that seems strange. Yeah, that bee is dead. Don't go look in the house where she's actually dead because I really did dead her. I wanted it to be shocking, attention grabbing, but not as much so as my mom's body.
Someone would call the authorities and have a house, a house check and check on the house.
She did this with the sole intention of framing Nick to then hopefully get away scot-free to make it look like he took her against her will. But too bad Gypsy isn't as smart as she thinks she is. And all the electronics, his trial, the case evidence shows us.
And why did you want her to be found?
Because I couldn't stand the thought of her just being there. I wanted her to have a proper burial, funeral. I wanted her to be put to rest because, again, I didn't hate my mom. I loved her. I just hated my situation.
No, you hate, loathe, despise your mother because you hate the fact that you really do have a severe genetic condition and that it made you sick, that it caused you severe health issues, that impaired your ability to live a normal life. You hated that your mother had cancer. You hated that your mother had diabetes. You hated that she was overweight. You hated your mother and you still hate your mother because otherwise at 24 years old, you would have stood up, you would have walked out, and you would have kept trying until you got your freedom. You didn't have to kill her, but you wanted to.
Did she have those things? Was she buried or cremated?
She was cremated and her ashes are with my Aunt Claudia.
And they're in an urn thanks to content creators.
Do you have any thoughts or plans to lay her to rest, to scatter those ashes?
I often made my wishes known that I would love for her to be put to rest with my grandma Irma, where my grandma is buried. That's what she would have wanted. But again, since her ashes are not in my care, I can't tell someone
That's complicated.
to do that.
That's complicated.
Gypsy, you forfeit the right to have any say in what happens to your mother's body when you're the one that was charged with and took a plea deal for her murder.
What was a normal day like for you at home with your mum? Because you didn't go to school.
Right.
She didn't work.
Right.
And you said it wasn't always torturous and abusive.
Right.
So what was it like?
I mean, a typical day would be just like us watching TV. We lived our life a lot of watching TV.
Oh no, not TV. People watching TV is just as bad as kids today with the social media addiction. Oh wait, that's Gypsy.
So a lot of times I learned what life was like on TV by watching TV.
Oh, no. You never had a normal life. You never got to do anything. You never got to have friends and speak to people because she controlled who you hung out with, who you didn't hang out with, what you wore, what you didn't wear, what you spoke like, what you looked like, what you did, what you didn't do. Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally buying it, Gypsy. Totally buying it because I wasn't allowed to have friends, but then she controlled every friend that I had. Well, which one is it? That's the same as saying, I didn't want her dead. I loved my mom, but yet admitting that you premeditated it and you were sitting there sniffing her pillow saying goodbye.
So we would get up in the morning, watch TV. She would give me my medication and feedings through my feeding tube. And then we would watch some more TV. And if we had to go to the grocery store, we'd go to the grocery store, but come back, she would have dinner, again, medications, and then watch a movie and go to bed.
Medications that were still in their packaging and not administered. But hey, so many people in America have a medicine cabinet that looks similar to this that there's actually videos on TikTok on how to organize it.
And you knew, I mean, a lot of those medications had a horrible effects on you.
They created they had side effects that almost mimic symptoms of certain illnesses. So,
But for you, Gypsyrose Blanchard, you really have a real illness that has lots of symptoms and side effects, especially during your developmental years, that really do mimic your real condition. And that, unfortunately, is the truth for your specific case.
So did you come to dread medicine time?
I didn't like half of them. There was a lot that just made me feel funny, groggy, out of body.
Oh, no. She didn't like feeling funny or groggy. She just liked the really good shit, the illegal shit.
How many years of your life did you spend being fed through the hole in your stomach?
I believe I had the feeding tube placed. Now, don't quote me on this. I was very young. I think at 8 years old.
Wow.
And didn't have it removed until I was 24. Yeah, 24.
So when you were arrested?
When I was in county jail.
And perfect deflection technique right there. Gypsyrose Blanchard not really answering the real question and admitting that she had eaten solid foods her whole life.
Given your very strange home life, what was jail like for you?
Jail was actually scary at first. Because I'm around a bunch of women that I don't know in a completely different setting that I'm not familiar with. Jail was a small taste of what high school, I guess, would be like.
This is what it looks like when Gypsyrose Blanchard tries to compare jail and prison to what she thinks high school would have really been like had she went.
A lot of the women were just there on drug charges and things that I wasn't familiar with. And so for about 4 months, they kept me on like a suicide watch to observe me, see if I did have any symptoms of an illness. I did not. And so after that 4 months was up, they put me in general population.
But you really do have health issues, and you really do have a lot of them that are symptoms and side effects of just having the genetic chromosome microdeletion disorder that you have. And that's unfortunate that you do have it. I understand what that's like because I have a genetic connective tissue disease, and I have a very severe form which impedes my ability to function and live a normal life. But Gypsy skates over the fact that she really does have this microdeletion of chromosome 1q21.1, that she has this microdeletion and the types of things that it has done to her specifically.
And you've described jail in the past as some of the best days of your life.
Exactly.
I mean, how is that possible?
Well, after county jail and I went to prison. So prison, you have a lot more freedom than county jail. You have a job in prison. You are allowed to, have a key to your room so you can come in and out of your room. There's so many more things that are available to you. So a lot of people think it's so restrictive. But for me, that was the most freedom I had ever had. I was like, I could have a job now. And, I was one of those people that's like, yay, I'm excited to have a job.
And eat normal food?
Eat normal food. Like, this is...
In the prison confessions of Gypsyrose Blanchard, she admits to eating food all the time, that she would sneak food all the time, and that she would have solids all the time.
But this was the independence that you had not experienced.
Exactly. It's a newfound independence.
So having served 8.5 years in prison, do you feel that you've done the time for your crime?
I really, really struggle with that. I feel like I understand that the court gave me a 10-year sentence and incorporated all of the mitigating factors.
Mitigating factors don't matter for somebody over the age of 18 who knowingly causes the death of another person.
All of us involved are, it's relief. At the very beginning of this, there was the question of the death penalty on the table. And
I am Gypsy's manager. I never would have imagined that I would be sitting here doing this. When I took her case 9 years ago, I defended her criminal case. When that case was over, I've stayed in touch with her. Now she's 33 years old and has never gotten to decide what she wants out of her life.
Okay, Mike Stanfield, you're making money off of her, but what about Nicholas Godejohn? What about Dee Dee Blanchard? What about Stephanie Goldhammer? What about their lives?
And we've now thrust her out into the world, and she really needed someone to help her to navigate all of these things.
You mean that you just took it upon yourself to be her manager, to take a big chunk of all of her money, to literally sit there and say that she needed somebody to help her navigate these things? Oh, because, her own father and stepmother weren't there the first 24 years of her life. What makes you think they're going to be there for the next 24? Yeah, absolutely nothing. So Mike Stanfield just threw you under the bus, Rod Blanchard and Christy Blanchard, and basically told you that you are inadequate and you are not good enough to actually help her function and to help her navigate life and to help her choose the right choices and to do the right. You know what? It sounds to me like Gypsyrose Blanchard needs a caregiver, like a conservator or a guardian, especially if her own attorney is saying things like that. Like somebody had to be the one to come and help her.
She deals actually on a day-to-day basis with people on the internet, on social media, that are actively trying to get her parole revoked. Somebody sent a letter in Gypsy's name from Texas to Nick at the prison, trying to make it look like Gypsy is trying to contact him. As part of the management role, I'm also still dealing with a lot of the parole aspects of her case.
Money, 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 money.
Yes, I'm her manager. This is a business relationship. I do care what happens to Gypsy, and I care greatly about her future.
Money, 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 money.
But they could give me 10 years in prison, but that's not going to stop the guilt and the regret and the remorse and the nightmares and the stigma that I have to live the rest of my life with. Mm-hmm. So in a sense, I have a life sentence. I'm just living it in a much bigger prison that is society's view of me.
And that will never, ever, ever change, sweetheart. You, no matter what you think of yourself and no matter what you are unwilling to confront, you are a murderer.
Yeah, I guess that's, to your point, so many people, you have so many supporters and fans, but you also have a lot of people who want to give you a label.
Exactly. I try not to put myself in a label box.
She doesn't want to be in a label box. Murderer, evil, psycho.
But it's like watching an origin story. So even on a villain, when you watch a villain's origin story, they weren't born a villain, were they? They got there somehow by something traumatic happening.
Oh, give me a break. You are not seriously comparing yourself to a Disney villain and the villain origin story.
And so some part of them changed at that point in their life. And so I wasn't born evil. I wasn't born a murderer. My circumstances took me there, and that was my path.
Your path is the path that you're responsible for. You're the one that chose it. You're the one who committed murder. You're the one who chose to commit murder, okay?
Are you a victim or a murderer?
I'm both victim and perpetrator.
Said what? Girl, you're that close to telling the truth. Come on, just do it.
And how does that sit with you?
You know, the saying, how do you live with yourself? It's difficult. It's not something that I think about every day, because if I was to sit here and constantly think about it day in and day out, I wouldn't be able to move forward with my life. And I have far too much support from my family.
Yeah, and what about Nick? What about his mother, Stephanie? What about Ryan Anderson? What about Dee Dee Blanchard? What about their human right to life and their support? What about the people who care and love them too?
To just crawl up in a ball and put a label on myself, shove myself in a box, and deem myself unlovable or unable to have a second chance.
That's because you're a murderer, and murderers don't usually get second chances, no matter what the circumstances are. You made a choice, you carried it out, and it's just fundamentally the truth. It's what happened. We don't usually give plea deals to murderers. But what about the second chance of Nick, Stephanie, and Dee Dee?
Everybody deserves a second chance.
Yes. I fully believe that everybody deserves a second chance.
No, what you're saying is that you feel like you should be granted a second chance, despite being a murderer. Murderers don't get second chances. Neither do child chomos. Apply that same logic to your own daughter. What if somebody hurt her when she was 9 or 12?
Do you think about how things could have been different had you confronted your mother, told the doctor, had it played out differently?
Of course. I mean, that is something that I think about. Sometimes I'm asked, hey, if you can go back to this point in your life, what would you do different? And I say, I wouldn't go back to right before the murder. I'd go back to when I was like little, like 5 years old, and tell one of my family members, I don't think that mommy is okay. I don't think she's being honest. And tell a family member, and this whole thing would have turned out completely different.
It would have turned out completely different if you would have not tried to take your mother's life 3 times until you were finally successful. But the whole thing is that you had to reel in somebody with severe mental health issues, mental disability, and level 2 autism to get the job done for you. So you can step back and say, I don't identify with being a murderer. I don't identify with being a felon. I'm not the one who did the act.
Because you were raised to be really a people pleaser.
I was, and in a lot of ways I still am.
Yeah.
Finding
I sense that about you, actually.
Finding my voice has been a journey that I'm still working on.
Do you think you've found it?
Still working on it. I found my voice. Now it's about finding the courage to exercise it.
This is an area which Gypsyrose Blanchard has absolutely no issues exercising her voice. She never has. You should hear the way that she used to talk to her mother. I'm sure it was as disgusting as the way she talks about Nicholas Godejar, calling him a POS and a psychopath. I'm sorry, you're the one who planned the murder of your mother, and you're going to sit here and call other people a psychopath and a POS? You're going to sit here and lie to all of social media, saying that you're never going to show your child's face, and yet that's exactly what you do, not even 3 months later. All you do is exercise your voice. How about exercising the right to shutting the fuck up?
This is actually kind of the first time I've been honest. Besides being honest, with my attorneys. Even that, I haven't been completely honest with them.
You met Ken while you were in prison.
I did.
So why did he reach out to you?
So Ken had wrote to me after watching my documentary, my first documentary, Mommy, Dead and Dearest, that premiered on HBO in 2017. And I was getting a lot of mail from people that watched the show, offering their support, and he was one of them.
And so was Ryan Anderson, and so was all these chomos that she had been writing to. Oh, and those letters are up for sale on eBay and Facebook. Oh, and so was Ken. That's an actual psychological illness. Somebody who writes to people who are in prison for committing heinous crimes. People that are attracted to somebody who was so-called, quote, traumatized, unquote. Gypsy wasn't just writing and receiving letters of compassion and support. She was receiving letters from people who wanted to capitalize and monetize her infamy.
And our personalities just clicked. We're both very nerdy. We both have similar interests in movies and TV and I guess just life. And I was 25 when we met, and he was 24. So we were still very young.
And so your relationship was letters and then very limited prison visits.
Exactly. So we went from letters to phone calls, and then while we established a phone call friendship, then he started visiting me. So.
Yeah, that speaks volumes to who Ken is on the inside. The fact that he's visiting you and he's so quick to make you look so stupid in front of social media and the public. I mean, not that you didn't participate in it. The way you guys hurt Ryan was bad.
What do you love about him?
I love his energy. So Ken is very high energy.
He is.
Which I think kind of balances me out because I think I'm calm for the most part. But I always say we're like two ponies on a field just running free together.
Notice how Gypsy always tries to compare something like My Little Pony or The Sound of Music to her life.
How can you be so calm given the life you've led already?
I think I try, unless there's something that really kind of freaks me out. I try and stay calm because I like to take in my surroundings.
Girl, you like to take in your surroundings? Well, you certainly don't like cleaning them. That's for sure. That's something that is very common for you then and very common for you now. You just expect other people to get their butts up and to do everything for you. Yeah, your mom spoiled the shit out of you.
Do you think that was also how you were trained by your mother, in a way, to sit and be calm and polite? And
It was. I feel like the only times that I'm ever kind of goofy is when I'm fully being myself behind closed doors and I don't have to worry about how people perceive me or view me.
That's all she cares about, and trying to make Nick look bad.
so is that away from the cameras?
Away from the cameras.
When you
It's
just
kind of like
read-
in front of the cameras. I'm like, okay, calm, business, zone.
Wow.
But in behind closed doors, I'm like,
Behind closed doors, all she cares about is herself and money.
that I don't want my baby to be in front of a camera. Unless it's for like home movies, I will not be putting my child in the media at all.
Why?
Oh, and she cares about what people are saying about her on social media. She cares about what mainstream media are saying because that's all she cares about. She wants you to think that she's a better person than what she really is. But just go and look at her actions, words, choices, and behaviors. Look at what she has said and done about her own baby, using the baby as a prop to revive her broken reputation.
What does Ken love about you?
And he's always loved my heart. He's always loved my personality. Because in a lot of ways, our personalities are similar. And I feel like we're able to be very open and honest with each other. We could have really deep conversations that we would otherwise never have with anybody else.
Okay, that's important.
Mm-hmm.
Ken is nothing more than a polished turd.
And that's amazing because you've skipped every sort of normal teenage boys, dating, forming relationships, long-term relationships. You have skipped all that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you and Ken met in prison. You're engaged. You've since married someone else, got divorced,
Yes.
back with Ken and expecting his child. That's a lot of pressure on a relationship.
It's really guilty. Just because, I know there's been a lot of change for him. And I feel like I haven't been sensitive to that. It's a lot. The good thing is we do have that foundation to build off of. In a lot of ways, we have changed over the years. I've matured. He's matured. We both were in relationships, for long-term relationships, and have learned things from those relationships that prepared us for what we are essentially doing, which
Ken better sleep with one eye open and gripping his pillow tight because the only thing that's going to be going through his mind is please don't kill me, 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 please don't.
is we are creating a family for ourselves. In the sense we went our separate ways back in 2019 and we learned what it was like to be apart. And it
Because
was an
he dumped your
experimental
ass.
phase. It's kind of like, can I live without this person? Am I happy without this person? And if the answer is no, fate will lead us back to each other. And it did.
And here you are.
And here we are, and we have a baby.
Yeah, we're going to have a baby because I trapped him. Yeah, now that baby is here. And now I'm using that baby to keep him. I'm using that baby to make people love me on social media, but it's just not working. And don't forget to subscribe, like, turn on notifications, and share.